And our headline story of the day that we will lead with is that Rickford, the Northern Development Minister, who talked yesterday and the Monday is about what's coming up in Northern Ontario, especially in regards to the province, the strategy for critical minerals. Mm-hmm. He had some strong words for environmental groups, and that is, there's no green economy without mining. And so that's what we'll be leading with today.
Yeah, this is a really great discussion when we're talking about going forward with the, a green type of agenda for not only our country but the world, right? Everybody, we want more green energy. We want to be a little bit more sustainable, and so the Conservatives here make an interesting point. We were talking about that earlier today.
Yeah, I like it.
So exactly, what you would normally think is that, okay, these mines are opening up and there's going to be a heavy footprint against the environment on the land where they're going to be actually mining for these materials.
That's another aspect, yeah.
So there's a lot of groups that want to put a halt to this because it's against the environment because of possibly the invasive way in which it's going about extracting the precious metals, the ore. So what are the Conservatives? What is their kind of take on their point of view, saying that it actually is in their best interest to allow this to go forward?
Well, you can kind of break it down into two things. One is Ontario is extremely progressive in terms of our environmental
policies.
The standards that we hold extraction companies to are very, very high. So wouldn't you rather compared to the rest of the world,
places in the world, for sure, yes.
Essentially anywhere else in the world,
definitely.
So when you're talking about these critical minerals, you can't just say it causes this much pollution. You have to say compared to what, and compared to other places, compared to other countries, ours is by far the best.
So that's one point in and of itself. So mining these,
it's going to happen.
That's right.
Wouldn't you rather happen in the best place?
Like, we do need them for a lot of, there's a lot of uses we need them. The world needs metals.
Yeah.
For sure.
And they're going to need more.
So would we want to have them from, let's say, Africa or, now Russia is a whole thing unto itself, right? Russia has a lot of natural resources.
And there's a socioeconomic reason for that, but the environmental reason is very clear.
That's right.
You should have countries with very high environmental standards doing it.
So
if that's what you're worried about.
That's one reason, right? So we need these, and it's going to be mined the most environmentally friendly way out of any other place in the world. So that's one thing. If you really care about the global impact of climate change. So what's the next kind of environmental reason that the government is saying that it makes sense to go forward in an environmental point of view?
Well, I think we already covered kind of the other half of it, which is the social reasons. And that is, if you're worried about indigenous people being infringed, you have to think compared to what? And everywhere else in the world that they're extracting these minerals, you're going to have a very similar issue with the people there. Now, you can say that the people here have a special right to not be infringed. That's an argument that you can make.
For sure, yeah.
But it benefits them much more. It benefits the indigenous people being infringed here much more than it benefits the indigenous people being infringed elsewhere, because we're so forward thinking, and we're like the best in the world for this. We actually come to the table. The government actually does, I think, a pretty good job. Historically, they haven't done a good job.
No,
but again, compared
recently,
to what?
That's right. But recently,
compared to who?
Exactly.
Compared to whom?
Yeah.
So to me, between those two arguments, it really becomes more of an economics. Is it economically feasible? Because we go to an extra mile on these two things. Is it going to be economically viable? And the way that nickel has shot up in price, it is economically viable.
Definitely is economically viable for sure. And it's kind of like the timing would be, now would be the time to do it, when nickel is, up in price. There is another point too, other than the main environmental that we have.
Sure.
We have a more, environmentally friendly way of going about mining in Canada compared to the rest of the world. We do go about it more negotiation based with First Nation and have them at the table, and instead of just like we used to do in the past, or other countries might still do, and that's
Through
just
edict.
just go ahead and no one has a say. There's the socioeconomic point that needs to be made as well, and then another environmental point is that in order to reach the point where we can have electric vehicles and use electric more than what we're using with fossil fuels, we need these minerals. So in order to go ahead with the manufacturing and of all these of the
Green
technology, we need that. So we can't really get to the next step if we don't do this. And why not? For all of these reasons, it just makes a lot of sense for all those reasons.
No, and he kind of Rickford, again, this is the Northern Development Minister, Greg Rickford. He kind of made reference to the $1.5 million grant to Science North on this mining exhibit that they're developing. And it's going to be very educational, because I think the big problem with this is education. I don't think, like, we've tried to deliver kind of an overall view of this, and some of our arguments, people could say, you're not giving the full picture. But I think part of the reason why people are so some people are so standoffish about this is because they're not looking in the broader context. We live in a world economy, so if we don't deliver the nickel, it's going to come from somewhere that's less progressive with their labor laws, less progressive with their environmental laws, and less progressive with their property rights.
And they're going to get the money for it, because that is
and that's the
side
consequence.
Thing. There is economic growth. It goes into providing for our communities and our country, basically, so you can be economic. You can compete economically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's so many points to this that it just.
That's why we led with it.
Yeah, well, you decided to do that, and that just shows. Again, that's why Zach is here at Sudbury News, because he has a nose for news.
I think if you're from Sudbury and you've been here for any amount of time, you can't deny the importance of mining in our city. We can't just stop doing that. It would be terrible for the city.
Yeah.
And if Sudbury did that, it would be a net negative on the world, because the world uses what we produce.
The world needs Sudbury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as we become bigger, absorbing people from the world, it also goes the other way. What we produce is useful for the world too. And
if you really look at how Sudbury will impact the future of the green, technologies that we're planning to move into, it's going to be very, very important to the world's economy and the world's, desire to go green.